What if I told you that one of the most bizarre moments in space history might also be one of the most overlooked clues to extraterrestrial life? Picture this. The year is 1996. The Space Shuttle Columbia orbits Earth, deploying a 12-mile-long tether as part of an experiment to generate electricity, but something goes wrong. The tether snaps, and what happens next has fueled debate for decades. As cameras roll, strange, glowing shapes emerge from the darkness, swirling around the broken tether like nothing NASA had ever seen. Some say it was just debris, ice crystals, or a camera malfunction. But others, well, they're convinced this footage captures something far more extraordinary. Could it be proof that we're not alone, that floating in the void of space just beyond our reach are creatures beyond our wildest imagination? This is the infamous Tether Incident, a mystery wrapped in static and speculation. For years, the footage has been dissected, dismissed, and defended. Scientists point to plasma discharges or optical illusions. Yet, when you watch those grainy frames, it's hard to ignore the unsettling detail. Those shapes don't just drift. They move with purpose, they shift, they dart, they almost seem alive. And if that's true, what does it mean for our understanding of the universe? Are we sharing the cosmos with beings we can't even begin to comprehend? Or is this just another case of our minds seeing patterns where none exist? Tonight, we're diving deep into the enigma of the Tether Incident. We'll examine the footage frame by frame, hear from experts on both sides of the debate, and explore the haunting possibility that NASA accidentally recorded something science still can't explain. This isn't just about a broken cable or a glitch, it's about the tantalizing idea that we might have glimpsed a cosmic neighbor. So buckle up. Whether you're a skeptic or a true believer, one thing's certain: by the end of this journey, you'll never look at space the same way again. The STS-75 mission was supposed to be a routine step forward in space technology, a chance to test a revolutionary way of generating power in orbit. On February 22, 1996, the Space Shuttle Columbia lifted off with a crew of 7 astronauts and a payload that included the Tethered Satellite system. This experiment was designed to explore whether a long conductive cable deployed in Earth's magnetic field could produce electricity as it moved through space. The idea was simple in theory. The 12-mile tether would act like a giant dynamo, cutting through the planet's invisible magnetic lines to generate power without traditional fuel. If successful, it could redefine how we operate spacecraft in the future. But space rarely follows a script. As the crew carefully released the satellite, everything seemed to go smoothly until suddenly it didn't. Without warning, the tether snapped near its base, sending the satellite drifting away into the void. NASA later attributed the break to an electrical discharge or possibly a mechanical flaw, but what happened next would overshadow the mission's original goals. As cameras tracked the floating tether, something unexpected appeared in the footage. Strange, luminous shapes began swarming around the severed cable, pulsing and darting in ways that defied easy explanation. The official report dismissed the anomalies as ice particles or debris illuminated by sunlight, but the footage itself tells a more unsettling story. These objects didn't behave like random fragments. They moved with a kind of coordination, hovering, accelerating, even seeming to react to the tether. It's no wonder that, for decades, this incident has stirred whispers of something far stranger than a technical malfunction. Was this a glimpse of a phenomenon science couldn't yet categorize? Or were we witnessing something even more extraordinary, a life form that exists beyond our current understanding? The mission may have been intended to study energy, but it inadvertently opened a door to one of space's most enduring mysteries. The moment the tether snapped was anything but silent. Inside the shuttle, alarms blared as the crew scrambled to understand what had just happened. On live NASA broadcasts, viewers watched in real time as 12 miles of cable, meant to be a stable conductor suddenly whipped free, drifting into the blackness like a severed umbilical cord. But the real shock came seconds later. As cameras zoomed in on the floating tether, the monitors flickered with activity. Dozens of glowing orbs emerged from the darkness, clustering around the cable in a slow, deliberate dance. One astronaut's voice crackled over the comms, tense with disbelief. "What are we looking at here? Those don't look like debris." Another responded, "No way, that's ice." Not moving like that. The footage showed the objects pulsing, their movements erratic yet oddly synchronized. Some darted forward, as if inspecting the tether's frayed end. Others hovered in formation, shifting direction in unison. The crew's confusion was palpable. Trained professionals, accustomed to the predictable physics of space, now faced something that defied their manuals. NASA official explanation pointed to mundane causes: ice crystals shaken loose from the shuttle, or reflective debris caught in sunlight. But the astronauts' reactions told a different story. Years later, one crew member would admit off record, "We'd seen ice before. This wasn't that." The object's behavior raised unsettling questions. Why did they cluster only around the tether? How could fragments accelerate so abruptly without propulsion? And most haunting of all, why did some appear to change trajectory, as if reacting to the cable's movement? The broadcast footage, now frozen in history, captures more than a technical failure. It's a Rorschach test for the imagination. To some, it's proof of plasma discharges, a rare but natural phenomenon. To others, it's evidence that something or someone was already out there watching. The tether didn't just break that day, it may have pulled back a curtain. When NASA first reviewed the footage of those mysterious glowing objects, their official explanation aimed to ground the phenomenon in familiar science. Dr. Jack Bacon, a physicist working with the agency at the time, described the scene as a textbook case of optical illusions in space. According to the official report, the objects were likely ice particles or tiny fragments of debris dislodged from the shuttle itself, illuminated by the harsh glare of unfiltered sunlight. Without Earth's atmosphere to scatter the light, even the smallest particles can appear startlingly bright in orbit, creating the illusion of larger, structured forms. Dr. Bacon pointed to the way sunlight interacts with fast-moving particles in microgravity. As these fragments tumbled away from the shuttle, their reflective surfaces could catch the light at different angles, making them seem to pulse or dart erratically. The tether, coated with conductive material, might have created an electromagnetic field that subtly influenced the motion of nearby particles, adding to the illusion of coordinated movement. To the untrained eye, these effects could easily resemble something alive, especially when viewed through the grainy, static-filled lens of 1990s camera technology. But not everyone found this explanation satisfying. Critics noted that ice particles typically disperse in random patterns, not the clustered formations seen in the footage. And while sunlight can play tricks on cameras, the object's movements appeared too deliberate, too responsive. Some frames even seemed to show the orbs changing direction in unison, as if drawn to the tether's frayed end. If these were just bits of ice, why didn't they behave like the other debris floating nearby? NASA's stance reflected a disciplined adherence to Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. Yet, even within the scientific community, whispers lingered. A handful of researchers quietly suggested alternative theories, from exotic plasma phenomena to electrostatic discharges unique to the tether's material. The debate wasn't just about ice versus aliens. It was a clash between what we know and what we think we know. For every expert who saw a mundane explanation, another wondered if the truth might be hiding in the gaps of our understanding. What makes the Tether incident so fascinating isn't just the footage itself, it's the way it exposes the limits of our certainty. Science thrives on evidence, but when the evidence defies expectation, even the most rational minds are forced to ask, what if we're missing something? The official explanation may have closed the case for NASA, but for those who still study the footage, the mystery remains wide open. While NASA's official explanation aimed to demystify the Tether incident, the UFO community seized on the footage as potential evidence of something far more extraordinary. Among the most vocal analysts was Dr. Mark Carlotto, an aerospace engineer and image processing expert who spent years meticulously dissecting every frame. His findings sent shockwaves through the ufology world. Carlotto argued these weren't just stray ice particles, they displayed characteristics inconsistent with random debris. The objects didn't drift, they accelerated, decelerated, and even changed direction in ways that defied conventional physics. One of the most striking details Carlotto highlighted was the apparent scale of these objects. Using the tether's known diameter as a reference, he estimated some of the glowing forms measured hundreds of feet across, far too large to be shuttle debris. Their movements suggested a level of control, as if responding to the tether's presence. In one sequence, a cluster of orbs appears to pivot in unison, mirroring the cable's slow rotation. Another shows a solitary object making a sharp 90-degree turn, a maneuver impossible for inert matter in microgravity. Carlotto's analysis wasn't just about dismissing NASA's explanation. It was about applying rigorous scientific methods to an unexplained phenomenon. He enhanced the footage's contrast, stabilized shaky frames, and plotted the object's trajectories. The results were hard to ignore. Some orbs followed parabolic arcs, while others seemed to pace the tether at a fixed distance, almost like observers maintaining a deliberate formation. To skeptics, these details could still be chalked up to camera artifacts or optical distortion. But for Carlotto and others, the precision of these movements pointed to something more, an intelligence behind them. The UFO community's fascination with the incident wasn't just about proving extraterrestrial life. It was about challenging the boundaries of what we consider possible. If these objects were indeed under intelligent control, their sheer size alone rewrites assumptions about potential extraterrestrial technology. A craft or entity hundreds of feet in diameter, maneuvering effortlessly in the vacuum of space, suggests capabilities beyond human engineering. And then there's the haunting implication of their behavior. Were they studying the tether, reacting to it, or had they been there all along, invisible until the cable's break disturbed their environment? Not every ufologist agreed with Carlotto's interpretations. Some proposed alternative theories, advanced military drones, classified experiments, or even interdimensional phenomena. But the core question remained: why did these objects behave so differently from anything else recorded in orbital photography? The debate mirrored a larger tension in the search for extraterrestrial life. Scientists demand replicable evidence, while eyewitnesses, even those as credible as astronauts, describe encounters that defy conventional frameworks. The Tether incident became a litmus test for how seriously we should take anomalies that fall between these extremes. What makes Carlotto's work so compelling isn't just his technical analysis. It's the way he forced a conversation mainstream science often avoids. When objects on film move in ways that contradict known physics, dismissing them as debris can feel like an evasion. The UFO community's scrutiny of the footage frame by frame, pixel by pixel, revealed inconsistencies that still lack satisfying answers. Whether these were alien craft, unknown natural phenomena, or something else entirely, one thing is clear: the Tether incident left a trail of questions that refused to fade into the blackness of space. Of all the anomalies captured in the Tether incident footage, one frame stands out as the most hotly debated, a fleeting glimpse of something that defies categorization. In the grainy static, an elongated, serpentine shape emerges, its blurry outline stretching across the screen like a living filament in the void. Estimates based on the tether's known dimensions suggest this object, if real, could span miles in length, an impossibly vast scale for any known spacecraft or natural phenomenon. Its motion is even more perplexing. Unlike the smaller orbs that dart and hover, this colossal form undulates with a slow, sinuous rhythm, as if propelled by some unseen force. Ufologists have dubbed it the space eel, a nickname that captures both its bizarre appearance and the eerie sense that it might be alive. The footage shows the shape pulsing with irregular light patterns, its surface appearing to ripple like the bioluminescent tendrils of a deep-sea creature. For those convinced of its reality, the implications are staggering. Could this be a life form evolved to exist in the vacuum of space, feeding on cosmic radiation or electromagnetic energy? Some researchers point to extremophiles on Earth organisms thriving in underwater volcanic vents or Antarctica's dry valleys, as proof that life can adapt to environments once thought uninhabitable. If microbes can survive such extremes, why not something far larger, floating between the stars? Skeptics counter that the creature is likely an artifact of camera distortion, a trick of light playing across the tether's twisted remains. They note that the shape never appears in crisp focus, and its movements align suspiciously with the cable's own drift. But proponents argue back. Why does it only appear in this one frame? Why does its motion differ so starkly from the tether's rigid, mechanical sway? Advanced image analysis reveals subtle details: a tapered tail, asymmetrical bulges along its length that seem organic rather than metallic. One independent study even claimed to detect a faint, repeating light pattern along its body, reminiscent of bioluminescent communication in Earth's oceans. The debate hinges on a deeper question: what would proof of extraterrestrial life even look like in such a context? NASA cameras weren't designed to document unknown organisms, and the footage's low resolution leaves room for endless interpretation. Yet the very ambiguity forces us to confront how little we know. If this was a living thing, its biology would rewrite every textbook. Picture a life form that doesn't need water or oxygen, whose body might be a plasma-based matrix or a porous scaffold harvesting energy from solar winds. Evolution in zero gravity could produce shapes beyond our terrestrial imagination, structures that coil like smoke or stretch like liquid crystal. What makes this frame so haunting isn't just the possibility it captures something alive. It's the way it taunts us with a truth just out of reach. No amount of enhancement can sharpen that blur into certainty. All we have is a shadow in the static, moving with a grace that feels against all logic intentional. Whether it's a trick of the light or a glimpse of the cosmos' best-kept secret, one thing is undeniable. This single frame has become a Rorschach test for humanity's deepest hopes and fears about what might be watching us from the dark. The deep oceans of Earth hold creatures so alien, they might as well be from another world, and that's exactly why they offer such a compelling lens for understanding what might have been caught on camera during the Tether Incident. Take the siphonophore, for example. This bizarre deep-sea organism isn't a single animal but a colony of thousands of individual clones, linked together in a glowing, gelatinous ribbon that can stretch longer than a blue whale. It drifts in the abyss, pulsing with bioluminescence, surviving in an environment of crushing pressure and eternal darkness. Now, imagine a life form adapted not to the ocean's depths, but to the vacuum of space, a place just as hostile yet brimming with untapped energy. The similarities are startling, like deep-sea creatures that harvest nutrients from falling marine snow. A spaceborne organism might feed on cosmic dust or plasma, absorbing charged particles the way Earth's extremophiles metabolize sulfur from hydrothermal vents. Microgravity could allow for structures far more delicate than anything possible under Earth's gravity. Think of the siphonophore's fragile, flowing body, but magnified to a mile-long serpentine form, its surface rippling with electromagnetic currents instead of muscle contractions. Even the space eel's pulsing light patterns find eerie echoes in the deep. The flashing lures of anglerfish, the synchronized glow of jellyfish blooms. But here's where the analogy takes a turn. In space, without the constraints of gravity or buoyancy, evolution could produce shapes we've never seen. A creature might resemble a living net, its filamentous body sifting charged particles from solar winds. Or it could form temporary clusters like the orbs in the tether footage, merging and separating like a school of fish, except these fish are made of conductive plasma, communicating through magnetic pulses. Some astrobiologists speculate such beings wouldn't even need solid tissue. Their bodies might be more like self-organizing clouds of ionized gas held together by electromagnetic fields. Critics argue this is pure speculation, and they're right. But speculation rooted in science fiction has a funny way of becoming science fact. Before the discovery of hydrothermal vents, no one believed life could thrive in boiling, toxic water. Yet there it was. The Tether Incident forces us to ask, if life can flourish in Earth's most unforgiving corners, why not in the void? The footage may never give us definitive proof, but it challenges us to widen our imagination. After all, the ocean's depths were once as mysterious as space is today, and every time we've dared to look deeper, we've found the universe far stranger than we dreamed. The Tether Incident wasn't the first or last time NASA cameras captured something that defied easy explanation. Decades earlier, during the Apollo 16 mission in 1972, astronauts orbiting the moon filmed an even stranger phenomenon. As the command module floated over the lunar surface, the crew noticed strange, worm-like streaks darting across their camera feed. These space worms, as they'd later be called, appeared as elongated, glowing trails moving in perfect parallel formation against the blackness of space. The footage, officially dismissed as lens flares or drifting ice crystals, shows the streaks maintaining consistent spacing while accelerating and decelerating in unison behavior that doesn't align with known physics for debris. Conspiracy theorists have long argued these weren't artifacts but something far more unsettling, evidence of large, structured objects moving with precision just beyond humanity's reach. Rumors persist that these anomalies sparked fierce internal debates within NASA. Former contractor Donna Hare once claimed that during her time working with the agency, she overheard discussions about airbrushing unidentified objects out of satellite images before public release. Another whistleblower, engineer Clark McClelland, alleged he witnessed a classified meeting where senior staff debated how to handle footage that showed non-human intelligences interacting with spacecraft. While these accounts remain unverified, they paint a provocative picture, an agency caught between scientific transparency and the political fallout of acknowledging the unexplainable. Even high-profile astronauts weren't immune to the speculation. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon, spent his post-NASA years openly advocating for UFO disclosure, insisting the government had long suppressed evidence of extraterrestrial contact. The Apollo 16 worms and the Tether Incident share eerie parallels. In both cases, the objects displayed coordinated movement, appearing only near human technology, as if drawn to it. Both were dismissed as optical illusions, yet neither fit neatly into that box, and both raised uncomfortable questions about what NASA knew but wasn't sharing. Declassified documents from the 1990s reveal that the agency funded multiple studies on anomalous phenomena in orbit, including a secretive project analyzing astronaut reports of unexplained lights and shadowy shapes. One memo even speculated about plasmatic life forms that could exist in the ionosphere, feeding on electromagnetic energy. The implications are staggering. If such entities were real, they might not be aliens in the traditional sense, but something even stranger, native inhabitants of the space environment, as natural to the void as fish are to the sea. Skeptics, of course, counter that secrecy doesn't equal proof. Classified projects could just as easily involve experimental aircraft or sensor malfunctions. But the pattern is hard to ignore. From the Gemini missions to the International Space Station, astronauts have consistently reported phenomena that never make it into press releases. Gordon Cooper, one of the original Mercury 7, famously claimed to have filmed a fleet of saucer-like objects landing at an Air Force base. Footage he said was confiscated and buried. The common thread, an institutional reflex to explain away the inexplicable. What makes these classified debates so fascinating isn't just the possibility of a cover-up. It's the glimpse they offer into science's struggle with the unknown. NASA, for all its brilliance, operates within political and cultural constraints. Admitting it had captured something beyond understanding could jeopardize funding, invite ridicule, or even destabilize global geopolitics. So the anomalies get labeled ice, debris, or artifacts, and the files gather dust until another tether snaps, another camera glitches, and the old questions resurface. The truth, it seems, isn't just out there. It's locked in a vault of institutional caution, waiting for someone brave enough to demand answers. For every eerie anomaly captured on film, there's a team of scientists working to unravel the mystery with cold, hard physics. When it comes to the Tether Incident, experts in optics and imaging have spent years dissecting that grainy footage, and their conclusions might surprise you. Dr. James Oberg, a former NASA engineer and space historian, is among the most vocal skeptics. He points to a simple but often overlooked truth: cameras in space don't behave like cameras on Earth. Without an atmosphere to diffuse light, the harsh glare of unfiltered sunlight can turn even mundane objects into glowing specters. That tether, coated in reflective mylar, essentially became a 12-mile-long lightning rod for optical illusions. The creature hypothesis faces its toughest challenge when you examine how digital sensors handle extreme contrasts. Dr. Rebecca Holmes, a specialist in computational imaging, explains that the cameras used on the shuttle weren't designed for high dynamic range photography. When pointed at a brightly lit tether against the void of space, the sensor's limited resolution would struggle to process the scene cleanly. Tiny ice particles drifting near the lens could refract sunlight in unpredictable ways, creating the illusion of pulsing orbs. Worse, compression artifacts, those blocky distortions familiar to anyone who's streamed a low-quality video, could make these blobs appear to morph into biological shapes. What looks like a serpentine space eel might just be a string of overexposed pixels smeared across frames as the camera adjusts exposure. Then there's the issue of parallax. Dr. Ethan Lee, an astrophysicist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, ran detailed simulations of the tether's movement and found something revealing. The apparent coordination between objects, those eerily synchronized turns and accelerations, could be explained by perspective shifts. As the shuttle and tether moved relative to each other, debris at varying distances would appear to move in complex, even intelligent ways. It's the same illusion that makes the moon seem to follow you on a drive. The human brain, wired to detect patterns, interprets these motions as intentional when they're really just geometry in action. Some of the most damning evidence against the creature theory comes from the footage itself. Dr. Oberg highlights a crucial detail often missed in sensationalized edits. The orbs only appear when the camera is pointed at the tether. Shift the angle slightly and they vanish. If these were independent entities, why wouldn't they show up elsewhere in the frame? The answer, he argues, lies in the tether's role as a light source. Its reflective surface acted like a cosmic flashlight, illuminating otherwise invisible particles that only became visible when backlit, like dust motes in a sunbeam. But perhaps the most compelling counterargument is scale. Those estimating the space eel's size based on the tether's diameter might be making a critical error. Dr. Holmes notes that without knowing the exact distance between the camera and the tether, or the tether and the hypothetical creature, size calculations are guesswork at best. A tiny fleck of ice just inches from the lens could appear massive if misinterpreted as something far away. It's the same trick that makes toy cars look life-sized in forced perspective photos. Does this mean the mystery is solved? Not entirely. Science thrives on skepticism, and even these explanations have gaps. Why do some frames show objects changing direction so abruptly? Why do they cluster so tightly around the tether? For every physicist who sees a textbook case of optical artifacts, there's another who admits the footage still holds puzzles. What's remarkable isn't just the debate, it's how the tether incident forces us to confront the limits of our tools. Cameras, even in space, don't show reality. They show a version of reality filtered through lenses, sensors, and the quirks of human perception. The truth might not be out there in the stars, but in the subtle interplay of light and shadow that makes the familiar seem alien. Imagine a creature that doesn't swim through water or walk on land, but glides effortlessly through the emptiness of space, its body pulsing with an eerie, self-generated light. If life exists beyond Earth, it wouldn't look like the green-skinned aliens of Hollywood. It might resemble something far stranger, shaped by the unforgiving void. Picture an organism that harvests energy not from food or sunlight as we know it, but directly from the charged particles of solar winds, its body a living antenna tuned to the universe's electromagnetic hum. Theoretical astrobiologists speculate that in the absence of atmosphere or gravity, evolution could produce life forms with biology unlike anything on our planet. Instead of muscles, they might rely on magnetic fields to move, their bodies rich in conductive materials like iron or plasma, allowing them to surf along cosmic currents. Photosynthesis wouldn't involve chlorophyll here instead. Their skin could be layered with photoreceptive cells capable of converting lethal stellar radiation into usable energy, turning gamma rays into sustenance the way plants turn sunlight into sugar. Bioluminescence might serve a critical purpose in this environment. On Earth, deep-sea creatures use light to communicate, lure prey, or confuse predators. In space, a similar glow could act as a beacon or a defense mechanism. Imagine a cluster of these organisms flashing in coordinated patterns, their signals rippling across the void like a form of interstellar Morse code. Their bodies might even pulse in response to fluctuations in the solar wind, creating a natural rhythm tied to the ebb and flow of cosmic energy, the real game changer. Scale. Without gravity's constraints, these beings could grow to colossal sizes, their forms stretching for miles like living nebulas. Some theorists suggest they might exist as loose colonies of cells bound by electromagnetic attraction, shifting shape to adapt to their surroundings, swarming like a school of fish one moment, dispersing like dandelion seeds the next. Others propose they could resemble giant filamentous networks, their tendril-like extensions acting as both sensory organs and energy collectors, drifting through the magnetospheres of planets or stars. Critics argue this is speculative fiction, but nature continually proves more inventive than we anticipate. On Earth, bacteria survive in nuclear reactors, worms thrive in toxic methane ice, and microscopic tardigrades endure the vacuum of space itself. If life can cling to existence in such extremes, why not flourish in the open cosmos? The Tether Incident's glowing orbs, whether ice, plasma, or something else, challenge us to rethink the boundaries of biology. Perhaps the universe isn't just hospitable to life as we know it. Perhaps it's teeming with life we've yet to recognize, silent, radiant, and utterly alien. Long before the Tether Incident sent shockwaves through the UFO community, humanity's fascination with cosmic monsters stretched back decades, even centuries. The 1950s alone spawned a wave of panics that now seem almost quaint in hindsight. Take the infamous Black Knight satellite conspiracy. In 1954, newspapers buzzed with reports of a mysterious object orbiting Earth, supposedly an alien artifact thousands of years old, silently watching us from the darkness. The truth, likely a combination of misidentified space debris and overactive imaginations, amplified by Cold War paranoia. Yet the legend persists to this day, a testament to our hunger for celestial mysteries. This impulse to anthropomorphize the cosmos runs deep. When early astronomers mapped the Martian canals, they envisioned an advanced civilization struggling to survive on a dying planet. When pulsars were first discovered in 1967, their rhythmic radio signals were briefly and seriously coded as LGM-1 for little green men. Even the Viking landers' photos of Mars in 1976 sparked frenzied debates about a face carved into the rocks despite NASA's insistence it was just a trick of light and shadow. Time and again, we project our fears and fantasies onto the blank canvas of space, transforming static into specters. What makes these myths so enduring isn't just their sensationalism, it's the grain of truth they exploit. Space is stranger than fiction. Plasma formations in Earth's upper atmosphere can mimic living shapes, writhing like glowing serpents. Unexplained radio bursts from distant galaxies pulse with cryptic regularity. Even the tether footage plays into a primal pattern, the human brain's refusal to accept randomness. Pareidolia, our tendency to see faces in clouds or animals in stars, isn't a flaw, it's a survival mechanism honed to detect predators in the rustling grass. When that same instinct stares into the abyss, it often sees something staring back. The Tether Incident didn't happen in a vacuum. It tapped into this rich history of cosmic storytelling, where every anomaly becomes a Rorschach test for our collective psyche. Skeptics dismiss it as the latest chapter in humanity's long tradition of space monster myths. Believers counter that this time the evidence is harder to explain away. High-definition footage from the pinnacle of human technology, witnessed by trained astronauts. Both sides agree on one thing: the universe keeps serving up puzzles that defy our categories. Whether those puzzles reveal extraterrestrial life or just the limits of our perception, they remind us how much we still don't know. What sets the Tether Incident apart from past panics is its visceral immediacy. Unlike grainy photos of Martian statues or fuzzy radio signals, here was a real-time event unfolding on live NASA broadcast. The tension in the astronauts' voices, the urgency of their confusion, these weren't the exaggerated theatrics of a B-movie alien invasion. They were professionals confronting the inexplicable, and their reactions lent the footage a credibility that legends like the Black Knight never had. Yet in the end, the incident joins a lineage of mysteries that hover at the edge of explanation, challenging us to question not just what's out there, but why we're so determined to find monsters in the dark. Astronauts have always been our eyes and ears in the cosmos, trained observers conditioned to separate fact from illusion. Yet some of their most chilling accounts sound like they're ripped straight from science fiction. Gordon Cooper, one of the original Mercury 7, never shied away from controversy. In interviews before his death, he recounted a 1957 incident at Edwards Air Force Base where he allegedly filmed a saucer-shaped craft landing on the dry lake bed. The footage, he claimed, was immediately seized by government officials and buried. These weren't hallucinations, he'd insist. They were structured vehicles moving in ways no human technology could match. Cooper wasn't alone. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man on the moon, spent his post-NASA years campaigning for UFO transparency, even alleging that Roswell was real and that extraterrestrial contact had been covered up for decades. What makes these testimonies so compelling is their source. These weren't fringe figures, they were consummate professionals, vetted by the most stringent selection processes on Earth. When Mitchell described beings with narrowed eyes in classified briefings, or Cooper spoke of high-ranking officers admitting the truth off record, it carried weight that amateur ufologists could never muster. Yet the STS-75 crew, those aboard Columbia during the Tether Incident, remained far more guarded. Publicly, they towed NASA a line, attributing the glowing orbs to ice or debris. But between the lines, subtle hints slipped through. In a little-known 1999 interview, mission specialist Claude Nicollier admitted there were aspects of the event that didn't fit our models. The movements, let's just say they sparked vigorous discussions post-flight. Perhaps the most telling moment came from payload specialist Umberto Guidoni, who later served in the European Parliament. When pressed by a journalist in 2003, he offered a cryptic smile. "In space, you learn quickly. Some questions don't have answers yet. It's the phrasing that lingers." Yet not "don't have answers," but "don't have answers yet." Even more revealing were the crew's real-time reactions during the incident itself. One tense exchange captured on NASA internal comms but later edited from public releases featured an astronaut muttering, "That's not debris." Debris doesn't move in formation. The comment was abruptly cut off by a flight controller switching channels, a detail that fuels conspiracy theories to this day. The contrast between these hushed admissions and NASA's official stance paints a frustrating picture. On one side, astronauts with first-hand experience hinting at something extraordinary. On the other, an institution built on empiricism, unwilling to entertain possibilities that could destabilize funding or credibility. This tension isn't new. Apollo 11's Buzz Aldrin has repeatedly described an L-shaped object shadowing their module during the moon landing, only to later reframe it as a detached panel. John Glenn, asked about UFOs late in life, conceded he'd seen fireflies in orbit that science still couldn't fully explain. These aren't wild claims of alien encounters, but they're cracks in the facade of certainty. When even the most disciplined minds admit to witnessing the unexplained, it begs the question, what else lingers in their unclassified notebooks just beyond the public's reach? The STS-75 crew's reluctance to speak openly mirrors a broader pattern in astronaut culture. Many fear professional backlash, or worse, becoming punchlines. As one anonymous shuttle veteran confessed in a 2012 documentary, "You report a light doing something strange, and suddenly you're that guy for the rest of your career." That stigma creates a paradox. The people best positioned to validate anomalies are often the least willing to risk their reputations. So we're left with fragments, half-finished sentences, redacted transcripts, and decades-old interviews ripe for reinterpretation. What did they really see? We may never know, but the pauses between their words speak volumes. The moment the Tether Incident footage hit the internet, a cottage industry of digital detectives sprang to life, armed with video editors and a thirst for revelation. But here's where the story takes a twist. Not all enhancements bring clarity. Some distort reality entirely. Enter the YouTube sleuths, whose well-intentioned but often reckless adjustments to the footage have sparked a different kind of space mystery. By pumping up contrast, isolating color channels, or running the video through AI upscaling algorithms, these amateur analysts have revealed details NASA's original cameras never captured, details that may exist only in the mind of the beholder. Take the infamous scales theory. One widely circulated enhanced version of the footage shows the serpentine object textured with what appears to be overlapping, plate-like segments, sparking claims of a biological exoskeleton. The problem: those scales only emerge after aggressive sharpening filters are applied, an effect that creates artificial edges by exaggerating pixel boundaries. Forensic image experts have demonstrated how similar filters can make a crumpled soda can look like it's covered in reptilian skin. Even more telling, these textures vanish when the original, unprocessed frames are analyzed. The scales aren't evidence, they're digital artifacts born from algorithms guessing at details that weren't there to begin with. Then there's the eyes debacle. In one particularly viral edit, a series of glowing dots along the object's length were reinterpreted as ocular structures, complete with speculative labels like pupil and iris. The creator even superimposed animated flashes to simulate blinking, but astrophysicist Dr. Karen Patel points out the fatal flaw. In space, there's no evolutionary pressure for eyes as we know them. Light behaves differently in a vacuum, and creatures, if they existed, would likely sense radiation or magnetic fields, not visible spectra. The eyes were later traced to compression artifacts, blocky pixel clusters caused by the video's low resolution that took on new life when splashed with false color palettes. The most misleading enhancements often come from AI upscaling, a tool that's equal parts powerful and perilous. These programs don't just sharpen images, they invent plausible details by training on earthly references. Feed it a blurry space tether, and it might see tendrils or limbs based on its database of deep-sea creatures or sci-fi concept art. One notorious example transformed static noise into what looked like articulated fins along the object's side, a detail celebrated by UFO forums until experts proved the AI had essentially hallucinated it, patching in features from unrelated underwater footage used in its training data. This isn't just academic nitpicking. Every false discovery risks drowning out legitimate anomalies. When NASA original footage shows unexplained movements, those signals get lost in the noise of manufactured ones. The backlash has created a paradox. The harder enthusiasts push to prove the incident's strangeness, the easier it becomes for skeptics to dismiss the entire phenomenon as digital pareidolia. Even Dr. Carlotto, whose analyses lent credence to the UFO theory, has criticized the overprocessing trend. Enhancement should clarify, not create. When you tweak parameters until you see what you want, that's not science, it's confirmation bias wearing a lab coat. Yet the allure of these edits is understandable. They tap into our deepest desire to peel back the static and finally see the truth, the irony. The original footage, grainy and raw, may hold more genuine mystery than any AI-polished version. Those unaltered frames force us to sit with uncertainty, to wrestle with what we can't explain rather than invent answers. In the end, the Tether Incident's real lesson might be about earthbound tech as much as cosmic enigmas. Sometimes the tools we use to uncover secrets wind up burying them deeper. NASA's stance on the Tether Incident footage raises a question that echoes far beyond this single event. Why has the agency never released the raw, unedited tapes? For decades, researchers and transparency advocates have demanded access to the complete recordings unedited, uncompressed, and free from the filters applied before public release. The version we've all seen is a heavily processed composite with frames selectively stabilized, contrast adjusted, and according to some analysts, potentially cropped. This reluctance to share the originals has fueled suspicions that something even stranger might lurk in those missing pixels. Consider the precedent. When the Apollo missions returned from the moon, thousands of hours of raw audio and film were archived, yet only a fraction ever saw public scrutiny. It took 40 years for NASA to release the original, unenhanced tapes of the Apollo 11 moonwalk, and even then, they were recovered by accident from a mislabeled box. The pattern repeats with modern missions. Freedom of Information Act requests for high-resolution ISS footage often yield heavily compressed files, with metadata scrubbed and timestamps altered. Officials cite data storage limitations and bandwidth constraints, but when independent researchers like Dr. Mark Carlotto have attempted to reconstruct raw frames from available snippets, they've found inconsistencies, subtle jumps in timestamps, abrupt cuts between angles that suggest selective editing. The agency's rationale for withholding data isn't entirely without merit. Space imagery involves complex calibrations. Releasing unprocessed files could lead to misinterpretations by those unfamiliar with sensor quirks or orbital mechanics. There's also the issue of national security. Satellites and shuttles carry classified hardware, and even mundane footage might inadvertently reveal sensitive capabilities. But critics argue this opacity comes at a cost. When every anomaly gets labeled proprietary or corrupted, it erodes trust. The irony is palpable. An organization dedicated to exploring the unknown becomes guarded when the unknown stares back. Former NASA employees have added fuel to the fire. In a 2014 interview, a retired imagery specialist who worked on the STS-75 mission admitted under condition of anonymity that certain frames were pulled for further review before public release. He stopped short of alleging a cover-up, but his wording "review" hints at a deliberateness that contradicts NASA's claims of routine data curation. More damning are the reports from contract technicians who claim raw footage from the Tether incident showed additional anomalies beyond the glowing orbs, including structured shadows moving against the starfield. These accounts remain unverified, but they underscore a pervasive frustration. The public rarely gets to see what astronauts and mission control see in real time. The tension between transparency and control isn't unique to NASA. Every space agency grapples with it. Russia's Roscosmos has faced similar scrutiny over edited Mir station footage, while China's CNSA releases only meticulously curated clips from its lunar missions. But NASA's position as a publicly funded institution makes its secrecy harder to justify. Taxpayers footing the bill for these missions have a right to the unfiltered data, especially when that data might challenge our understanding of life itself. Perhaps the most telling detail lies in what happened when outsiders did get brief access. In 2008, investigative journalist Leslie Kean obtained a partial copy of the Tether Incident's telemetry logs through a source at Johnson Space Center. The documents included sensor readings from the shuttle's plasma wave instrument data, not included in NASA's official report. According to Kean, those logs recorded anomalous electromagnetic fluctuations coinciding precisely with the orb's appearances. The readings spiked in patterns that didn't match known plasma behavior, resembling instead the pulsed emissions of man-made radar. NASA never addressed these discrepancies publicly, and requests for the full dataset were denied, citing ongoing analysis. This lack of transparency has unintended consequences. When official channels withhold information, speculation rushes in to fill the void. The same footage that scientists might study as a plasma phenomenon becomes, in the public imagination, proof of everything from secret military projects to interdimensional beings. The truth likely lies somewhere in between, but without access to the evidence, we're left passing shadows on a wall. The Tether incident stands as a case study in how institutions handle the unexplained. Cautious skepticism is one thing, reflexive secrecy another. If NASA wants to quell conspiracy theories, its best tool isn't dismissal, it's sunlight. Release the raw tapes, warts and all, and let the world decide. Until then, the question lingers: what else is hiding in those static-filled gaps? What if the glowing shapes swarming around the broken tether weren't ice, debris, or even solid creatures at all? A fringe but fascinating branch of physics suggests something far stranger: sentient life forms made entirely of charged plasma, thriving in the void like living storms. The idea isn't as outlandish as it sounds. Plasma, often called the fourth state of matter, dominates the known universe, making up stars, nebulae, and even the Earth's ionosphere. And if life can emerge in water, why not in this electrified soup of ions and free electrons? Dr. Franklin Felber, a physicist specializing in high-energy plasmas, has theorized that under the right conditions, plasma could self-organize into complex structures, mimicking biological systems. In lab experiments, filamentary plasma formations have been observed twisting into helical shapes, sustaining themselves for minutes at a time. A blink of an eye for humans, but an eternity for something that might exist on an entirely different timescale. These structures exhibit behaviors eerily reminiscent of life. They grow, replicate, even communicate by emitting electromagnetic pulses. The tether, pumping out electrical energy as it snaps, could have acted like a dinner bell for such entities, a sudden surge of nourishment in the cosmic wilderness. Imagine a creature with no fixed shape, its body a constantly shifting lattice of glowing filaments. Without the constraints of flesh and bone, it might stretch for miles, pulsing with internal currents. Solar winds could be its breath, magnetic fields its muscles. Some researchers speculate these beings would see not with eyes, but by sensing perturbations in electromagnetic waves, making the tethers snapping not just visible to them, but loud, like a thunderclap in an otherwise silent sky. The Tether Incident footage offers tantalizing clues. The way the orbs cluster around the cable's frayed end mirrors how laboratory plasmas converge around energy sources. Their synchronized movements could be explained by collective behavior, similar to schools of fish or flocks of birds, except here, the cohesion comes from electromagnetic attraction, not instinct. Even the space eel takes on new meaning through this lens. That sinuous, pulsing form might not be a single organism, but a temporary alignment of smaller plasma structures, drawn together by the tether's discharge like iron filings to a magnet. Skeptics counter that plasma, no matter how complex, lacks the information storage capacity for true sentience, but Dr. V. N. Taitovich of Russia's Academy of Sciences disagrees. His simulations show that under certain cosmic conditions, plasma crystals can form intricate patterns capable of storing and processing data, primitive analogues to neural networks. In the swirling chaos of a nebula or the magnetic embrace of a planet's poles, who's to say what levels of complexity might arise over billions of years? The implications are staggering. If plasma life exists, it wouldn't just rewrite biology, it would redefine our search for extraterrestrial intelligence. These beings might not build cities or radios, but their very existence would prove that life can flourish in forms we've barely begun to imagine. The tether's break then becomes more than an accident. It becomes humanity's first clumsy interaction with a life form so alien we mistook it for a camera glitch, yet for all its elegance the theory faces hurdles. Plasma requires energy to maintain coherence, and deep space is a cold, diffuse place. Without a star's constant input, how could these structures sustain themselves long-term? Some propose they're nomads, drifting between energy sources like cosmic jellyfish riding currents. Others suggest they're temporary sparks of order flickering in and out of existence, drawn to passing comets or spacecraft like moths to a flame. What makes the plasma hypothesis so compelling isn't just its scientific audacity. It's the way it forces us to confront our biases about what life should look like. We search for water for planets like Earth, for signals like our own, but the universe might be teeming with intelligences that don't need any of those things. The Tether Incident, in this light, becomes a Rorschach test for our cosmic solitude. Are we alone, or have we been surrounded all along by luminous, electrified minds, watching us from the dark without eyes, waiting for us to recognize them? The Tether Incident didn't just captivate scientists and ufologists, it seeped into the bloodstream of pop culture, reshaping how we imagine extraterrestrial life on screen. Take the gripping climax of Life, the 2017 sci-fi horror film starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds. The movie's nightmarish alien, a swirling, bioluminescent organism named Calvin, bears an uncanny resemblance to the serpentine shape from the NASA footage. Its movements, sinuous, deliberate, almost calculating, mirror the eerie behavior of the tether's so-called space eel. The filmmakers never confirmed the connection outright, but the parallels are hard to ignore. It's as if Hollywood took one look at those grainy frames and asked, what if that thing wasn't just floating but hunting? Beyond the silver screen, the incident became fertilizer for conspiracy lore. Online forums exploded with theories that NASA had encountered something beyond its control, a narrative that birthed viral memes like NASA Worst Monday and Tether Incident First Day on the Job. Even mainstream documentaries couldn't resist. The History Channel's Ancient Aliens dedicated an entire episode to dissecting the footage, while Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries wove it into a broader tapestry of government secrecy. The tether, once a simple tool for science, became a cultural Rorschach test, proof of cover-ups for some, a cautionary tale about credulity for others. What's fascinating isn't just the incident's reach, but how it mutated across platforms. Reddit threads debated whether the orbs were drones or entities. TikTok edits set the footage to ominous synthwave soundtracks, racking up millions of views. Even video games like Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War tucked cryptic references into their storylines, implying the tether had breached some unseen threshold. The incident's adaptability speaks volumes. It wasn't just a mystery, but a storytelling engine, flexing to fit every genre from horror to dark comedy. Yet the most telling impact might be subtler. Before 1996, Hollywood aliens were mostly humanoid, little green men or sleek, predatory greys. After the tether, sci-fi began embracing more abstract, even formless threats. Think Annihilation's Shimmer or Arrival's heptapods. The incident nudged creators to imagine life that wasn't just out there, but unlike anything here. It challenged the archetype of aliens as bipedal visitors, suggesting instead that the cosmos might harbor intelligences we can't even recognize. Memes and movies aside, the tether's legacy endures because it taps into a primal itch, the suspicion that authorities know more than they're sharing. Every time NASA tweets about unidentified aerial phenomena, the replies flood with tether references. Every declassified UFO report gets scrutinized for clues the agency missed back in '96. The incident became a shorthand, a single shimmering day, to point in humanity's argument with itself about whether we're alone. And like all great myths, its power lies not in proof but in possibility. The footage never needed to be definitive. It just had to be plausible enough to keep us wondering. While NASA's official explanation leaned on ice particles and optical illusions, a cadre of independent researchers refused to take the anomaly at face value. The Society for Planetary SETI Research, a collective of astronomers and physicists dedicated to re-examining unexplained phenomena, conducted their own frame-by-frame analysis, and what they found sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Their key revelation: the objects around the tether didn't just move erratically, they accelerated in ways that outright defied Newtonian physics. One particularly damning clip shows a cluster of orbs executing a synchronized 90-degree turn at impossible speed, a maneuver that would require instantaneous thrust without any visible means of propulsion. Dr. Robert Warwick, the astronomer who later discovered the interstellar object Oumuamua, reviewed the findings and noted, inertial forces alone should have caused gradual arcs, not right-angled pivots. This isn't how debris behaves, not in Earth's atmosphere, and certainly not in the vacuum of space. The Society's models demonstrated that for ice fragments to replicate these motions, they'd need to be both magnetically guided and self-propelled, a combination with no known natural precedent. Even more perplexing were the energy signatures. Using spectral analysis tools typically applied to distant quasars, researchers detected faint but consistent pulsations in the object's glow rhythmic oscillations that didn't match the random flickering of reflective debris. Dr. Paul Laviolette, a physicist specializing in unconventional propulsion theories, pointed out the eerie parallel. These pulses resemble controlled discharges, almost like a form of electromagnetic communication. If that's the case, we're not looking at space junk, we're looking at technology. The skeptics' usual rebuttals crumbled under this scrutiny. Claims of parallax illusion failed to explain why only the tether-adjacent objects exhibited such precision while other drifting debris moved predictably. The camera artifact theory couldn't account for why different shuttle cameras positioned at varying angles captured the same anomalous trajectories. Even plasma discharge, a favored NASA explanation, fell short. Laboratory tests showed plasma tends to diffuse chaotically, not hold formation like military jets. Perhaps the most startling analysis came from Dr. Beatrice Villarreal of the Nordic Institute for Theoretical Physics. By mapping the object's paths relative to the tether's electrical field, her team found something haunting. The orbs weren't just floating. They were interacting, their movements correlated precisely with fluctuations in the tether's voltage, as if drawn to, or even feeding on, its energy. "Imagine fireflies swarming a lantern," she said, "except the lantern is a 12-mile-long live wire, and the fireflies are invisible forces we can't yet define." The implications rattled conventional astrophysics. If these weren't ice crystals or plasma bursts, their very existence challenged foundational assumptions about motion in space. No natural phenomenon recognized by science could account for their behavior, which left only uncomfortable alternatives. Were they remnants of some classified human technology gone rogue, evidence of extraterrestrial probes monitoring our space ventures, or something else entirely, a life form or force beyond current taxonomy? Mainstream journals largely ignored these findings, dismissing them as overinterpretation of low-resolution footage, but the data remained stubbornly anomalous. When the Society submitted their report to NASA's independent review board in 2009, the response was a masterclass in bureaucratic sidestepping, interesting anomalies worthy of further study. No follow-up was ever announced. What makes these independent analyses so compelling isn't just their technical rigor, it's their willingness to stare into the unknown without flinching. While institutional science often avoids paradigm-shifting claims, these researchers embraced a radical truth. Sometimes the most scientific thing you can do is admit you found something science can't yet explain. In their hands, the Tether Incident stopped being a mere curiosity. It became a smoking gun at the frontier of human understanding, forcing us to confront a universe far stranger than our textbooks promised. In 2023, NASA decided to revisit the infamous Tether Incident footage with a powerful new tool no one had back in 1996, artificial intelligence. Using machine learning algorithms trained on thousands of hours of orbital debris and ice particle behavior, a team at the Goddard Space Flight Center reprocessed every frame at resolutions 50 times clearer than the original broadcast. Their verdict: the glowing orbs were indeed just ice, but with a twist. Advanced motion tracking revealed the fragments weren't merely drifting. They were caught in an invisible dance of microgravity physics, pushed and pulled by forces the naked eye couldn't see. The study, published in the Journal of Spacecraft and Rockets, broke down the phenomenon with unprecedented detail. Sunlight reflecting off the tether's metallic coating created localized thermal gradients, tiny pockets of warming and cooling in the surrounding space. These temperature differences generated minute air currents in the shuttle's residual atmosphere, a ghostly whisper of gas still clinging to its surfaces. Ice particles, some no larger than a grain of sand, rode these currents like leaves on a breeze. The AI even identified the exact moment when a thruster adjustment on Columbia subtly altered the shuttle's orientation, causing the debris field to pivot in unison. An elegant domino effect that, to human observers decades ago, looked eerily like coordinated movement. Yet for all its technical rigor, NASA's 2023 analysis did something unexpected. It acknowledged the skeptics. The public's persistent fascination with this incident isn't just about the footage, lead researcher Dr. Anika Patel admitted in a press briefing. It's about how our brains interpret ambiguity. The report included a first-of-its-kind psychological addendum, co-authored with neuroscientists from MIT, explaining why humans so readily perceive agency in random motion. Our visual cortex, evolved to spot predators in swaying grass, compulsively assigns intention to anything that moves against a static background. Add the adrenaline of a real-time space emergency, and even seasoned astronauts might see mysteries where none exist. But the internet wasn't buying it. Online forums erupted with counter-arguments. If these were just ice particles, why did some frames show objects accelerating against the thermal currents? Why did the AI model struggle to explain the serpentine space eel, which displayed movement patterns unlike any other debris? Independent researchers like Dr. Kevin Nuth, a former NASA scientist turned vocal UFO analyst, pointed out a critical flaw. The study assumed all anomalies could be explained by known physics. Science advances by investigating outliers, not dismissing them, he argued in a viral rebuttal. His own AI analysis, trained on alternative datasets including plasma formations and deep-sea bioluminescence, suggested a 5% chance the footage contained non-terrestrial signatures, a statistical whisper, but enough to keep the debate alive. The backlash revealed a cultural rift far deeper than pixel disputes. For a generation raised on HD CGI and algorithmic deepfakes, NASA crisp new visuals lacked the eerie rawness of the original grainy footage. The 1996 version felt like a haunted artifact, its imperfections leaving room for the imagination. The sanitized 2023 edition, with its color-coded thermal maps and vector arrows, stripped away the mystery, and with it, the emotional resonance. Reddit threads dissecting the report veered into philosophy. They gave us answers, one user wrote, but not the ones we wanted. Perhaps the most telling moment came when Dr. Patel's team released their training data to the public, inviting scrutiny. Within weeks, citizen scientists had used the same AI tools to produce conflicting interpretations. One hobbyist in Norway demonstrated how adjusting just 3 parameters could make the debris behave like intelligently controlled probes. A Berkeley grad student showed how solar wind fluctuations, unmodeled in NASA simulation, might create plasma artifacts mimicking biological motion. The message was clear: even cutting-edge tools couldn't fully resolve a mystery steeped in so much human longing. NASA, a final concession, some questions defy binaries. We've explained 95% of what's in that footage, Dr. Patel concluded. The other 5%, that's why we keep exploring. In the end, the Tether Incident's legacy isn't about proving or debunking. It's about the tension between our need for certainty and the universe's insistence on wonder. The glowing shapes may have been ice, but the questions they ignited still burn. Behind NASA polished press conferences and peer-reviewed papers, a shadow narrative has simmered for decades. Whispers from those who claim the agency's most guarded secrets aren't about rockets or satellites, but about encounters with beings that defy classification. Among the most explosive leaks came in 2014, when an anonymous source identifying as a former Johnson Space Center contractor uploaded a redacted dossier to a now-defunct aerospace forum. The document, dense with technical jargon and blacked-out code names, described something called Project Mistletoe, a purported black-budget program analyzing non-terrestrial biological entities observed during orbital missions. The Tether Incident, according to this leak, wasn't an isolated anomaly. It was part of a pattern. The whistleblowers' claims read like science fiction, but their professional pedigree lent eerie credibility. They referenced specific shuttle missions, STS-75 included, where crews allegedly reported luminous, motile structures exhibiting goal-directed behavior near spacecraft. One passage detailed a classified debriefing after the tether break, where astronauts were questioned about perceived interactions with the objects. Another mentioned a frozen storage facility at Kennedy Space Center nicknamed the Aquarium, where bioplasmic samples collected from high-atmosphere probes were kept under electromagnetic containment. The most chilling assertion that these entities weren't just out there, they were curious, drawn to human technology like moths to a flame. Critics were quick to pounce. The document's authenticity was impossible to verify, and its jargon occasionally strayed into Hollywood tropes, but intriguingly, some details aligned with verified NASA projects. The Aquarium designation, for example, matched a real cryogenic lab used to study extremophiles from Earth's upper atmosphere, and the description of bioplasmic behavior weirdly echoed unclassified debris research into ionized plasma structures that mimic lifelike movement. Even skeptics admitted the leak's author had an uncanny grasp of aerospace vernacular. either a sign of insider knowledge or meticulous research. The rumors gained traction when, in 2018, former astronaut Dr. Brian O'Leary, a respected physicist and Apollo program veteran, gave a cryptic interview before his passing. When asked about the tether footage, he mused, "There are life forms in space we don't understand. Not carbon-based, not even matter as we define it." He refused to elaborate, citing non-disclosure agreements, but his phrasing, "not even matter," resonated with the whistleblower's claims about ionized biomorphic patterns. Then came the most bizarre twist. In 2021, cybersecurity researchers tracing disinformation campaigns uncovered a trove of emails between aerospace contractors discussing tether-class phenomena. The messages, likely leaked in a corporate hack, avoided sensational language but repeatedly referenced persistent anomalies in orbital imagery requiring special handling protocols. One engineer lamented the difficulty of filtering biological false positives from sensor data, a phrase that sent conspiracy forums into overdrive. NASA official response, a terse statement attributing the emails to routine atmospheric artifact screening. For every whistleblower account, though, there's a sobering counterpoint. Dr. Sarah Hendrickson, a former FAA investigator specializing in aerospace leaks, notes that false insider narratives often weaponize half-truths. You take a real project, say, plasma research, and graft on extraterrestrial elements to make it irresistible, she explains. It's how you get plausible deniability when the hoax unravels. Indeed, many details in the Project Mistletoe dossier mirror known experiments with high-altitude plasma drones classified, yes, but undeniably human-made. Yet the sheer persistence of these leaks raises uncomfortable questions. Why do so many accounts from astronauts to mid-level technicians describe similar phenomena? Why does NASA language around unidentified aerial phenomena increasingly include baffling terms like transmedium and metamaterials? The agency's transparency paradox works against it. The more it dismisses, the more it fuels suspicion that dismissals are just a smokescreen. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between the extremes. Maybe these whistleblowers aren't revealing aliens, but something equally profound, a frontier of physics where natural phenomena blur the line between living and non-living. After all, if a plasma structure in space can self-organize, replicate, and respond to stimuli, does it matter if we call it life? The Tether Incident's enduring power isn't just about what we might have seen. It's about what we're forced to reconsider when the universe refuses to fit our categories. Astrobiologists have a name for life that thrives in conditions that would kill most organisms' extremophiles. These resilient creatures inhabit Earth's most hostile environments, from scalding hydrothermal vents to the frozen deserts of Antarctica. But could evolution push even further, crafting organisms adapted to the ultimate extreme, the vacuum of space? Dr. Lynn Rothschild, a NASA astrobiologist, doesn't dismiss the idea. Life is stubborn, she says. It finds a way wherever energy and basic chemistry exist, and space has both. Her research focuses on organisms like tardigrades, microscopic water bears that can survive desiccation, radiation, and even the emptiness of space by entering a near-death state called cryptobiosis. If a creature can press pause on its metabolism, why couldn't something evolve to live permanently in that state? But surviving space isn't the same as thriving in it. Dr. Rothschild's colleague, Dr. Dirk Scholz-Makuch, takes the concept further. He points to Earth's stratosphere, where microbes have been found floating miles above the surface, feeding on trace chemicals. Imagine a life form that doesn't just endure the void but exploits it, he suggests. Instead of water, its cells might use liquid methane or ammonia as a solvent. Instead of oxygen, it could metabolize cosmic rays or magnetic fields. These hypothetical organisms, dubbed vacuumorphs, would resemble nothing in our textbooks. Their bodies might be microscopic or stretch for kilometers. their structures held together by electromagnetic forces rather than cell membranes. The challenge isn't just imagining such creatures, it's recognizing them. Dr. Penelope Boston, former director of NASA Astrobiology Institute, warns that our definitions of life are deeply Earth-centric. We look for water, carbon, DNA, but what if life elsewhere uses silicon scaffolds or propagates through quantum entanglement? She cites the infamous Viking lander experiments on Mars, which searched for organic molecules but might have missed non-carbon-based biology entirely. The same risk applies to the Tether Incident. Those glowing orbs could be plasma-based life, their metabolism, a dance of charged particles we mistake for random motion. We're like deep-sea fish trying to understand fire, she says. Our tools and frameworks might be blind to what's right in front of us, yet skepticism remains fierce. Dr. Ian Crawford, a planetary scientist, argues that space's energy scarcity makes complex life unlikely. Even extremophiles need a steady input of nutrients, he says. The void is a buffet with almost nothing on the menu. He concedes that microbial spores might drift between worlds, but intelligent macroscopic entities. That's science fiction without evidence. His critique cuts to the heart of the debate. Without a specimen or reproducible data, the vacuum-morph theory leans heavily on analogy. But what if evidence has been hiding in plain sight? Dr. Chandra Wickramasinghe, a proponent of panspermia, the idea that life spreads across the cosmos, sees the Tether Incident as a potential smoking gun. Those objects moved with purpose, he insists. If they were plasma structures, why don't we see them near every satellite? Why only near a live electrical cable? He speculates that the tether's discharge might have attracted or activated dormant organisms, like a lightning strike triggering bioluminescent algae. The debate reveals a deeper tension in astrobiology. As Dr. Rothschild puts it, we're torn between two truths. Life is probably everywhere, and we have no idea what it looks like. The Tether Incident forces us to confront both. Those glowing shapes could be ice, plasma, or something beyond our lexicon, a reminder that the universe owes us neither answers nor familiarity. Until we develop tools to detect the truly alien, the line between debris and life may remain as faint as static on a decades-old tape. Where there's mystery, there's inevitably skepticism, and the Tether Incident is no exception. Over the years, a fringe but vocal contingent has insisted the entire event was an elaborate hoax, staged to distract the public or test their gullibility. These theories often draw parallels to other infamous space-related conspiracies, like the persistent myth that Stanley Kubrick secretly filmed the Apollo moon landings on a soundstage. The argument hinges on perceived inconsistencies, the footage's grainy quality, the glowing object's unnatural movements, even the timing of the tether's snap, which some claim was too convenient to be accidental. But how do these accusations hold up under scrutiny? Take the Kubrick comparison first. Moon landing deniers often point to anomalies in Apollo footage of lags fluttering in a vacuum, inconsistent shadows as proof of studio trickery. Yet every one of these has been debunked by physicists and photographers. The Tether Incident skeptics similarly seize on visual quirks, the orb's sudden appearances, their refusal to disperse like typical debris. But unlike the moon hoax theory, which collapses under technical analysis of 1960s film technology, the tether footage was captured by multiple cameras and sensors in real time. Faking it would require not just Hollywood-level effects, but conspiratorial coordination across dozens of astronauts, engineers, and ground control staff, all of whom would have had to maintain the lie for decades. Then there's the logistics of staging such an event. Unlike a soundstage where lighting and props can be controlled, the shuttle's environment was chaotic and unpredictable. The tether's break generated genuine alarm in mission control audio logs, complete with panicked troubleshooting and real-time data anomalies. Even if NASA wanted to fabricate the incident, the risks would outweigh any benefit. A hoax this elaborate would have required planting electrical failures, simulating plasma discharges, and choreographing the movements of countless debris particles in zero gravity, all while ensuring the shuttle's actual scientific mission proceeded flawlessly. As one engineer bluntly put it, it'd be easier to just film a real anomaly than fake one this convincingly. What about the footage itself? Hoax theorists often cite the too perfect timing of the camera angles as if someone were directing the action. But this ignores how NASA cameras actually worked. The shots weren't framed by a cinematographer, they were automated tracking feeds programmed to follow the tether's deployment. When it snapped, those cameras simply did their job, capturing the chaos as it unfolded. The object's eerie movements, far from being CGI precursors, align precisely with how reflective particles behave in microgravity when caught in electromagnetic fields, a phenomenon replicated in later experiments aboard the International Space Station. The hoax narrative also stumbles over motive. Why would NASA fake an incident that made them look incompetent? The tether's failure was a multi-million-dollar setback, embarrassing for an agency already under budget scrutiny. If the goal was distraction, why choose something so technically dense? As historian Dr. Roger Launius notes, conspiracies thrive on spectacle. This was a niche event until ufologists amplified it years later. Compare it to the face on Mars frenzy, another case where ambiguous imagery sparked wild theories, only for higher resolution photos to reveal a mundane rock formation. The tether footage, by contrast, has only grown harder to dismiss as imaging tech improves. Yet the hoax accusations persist, fueled by a deeper cultural unease. We live in an era of deepfakes and AI-generated content where seeing isn't always believing. The Tether incident taps into that paranoia, becoming a Rorschach test for our relationship with authority. Believers see a government hiding extraterrestrial contact. Skeptics see a public too eager to mythologize the mundane. Both miss the real lesson. Sometimes the universe is just stranger than we're ready to accept. The footage wasn't staged, but the fact we'd rather suspect fakery than confront the unknown says more about us than NASA. The next generation of space exploration tools might finally crack the Tether incident's enduring mystery, or uncover something even more astonishing. Imagine the James Webb Space Telescope, with its infrared gaze capable of detecting heat signatures 1 billion times fainter than previous instruments, trained on the exact orbital path where Columbia's tether snapped. Unlike the grainy 1990s footage, Webb could capture real-time spectral data, distinguishing between ice, debris, and just maybe unidentified thermal anomalies. Its sensors might reveal whether those glowing shapes were mere reflections or emitted their own energy, a telltale sign of something beyond inert matter. And with AI-driven pattern recognition sifting through petabytes of imagery, we could detect movement trends invisible to the human eye, subtle accelerations, trajectory shifts, or even recurring formations that hint at deliberate behavior. But why stop there? Modern plasma spectrometers, like those on the Parker Solar Probe, could map electromagnetic fluctuations in the tether's former coordinates, searching for remnants of the bizarre energy spikes recorded during the incident. Private ventures add another layer to the hunt. Companies like Astrodigital are deploying constellations of microsatellites equipped with hyperspectral cameras perfect for monitoring orbital anomalies in high definition. Even citizen scientists are joining the effort. Projects like SETI Unistellar Network allow backyard astronomers to contribute observations, creating a crowdsourced early warning system for strange phenomena near Earth. The real game changer might be machine learning's ability to re-examine old data with new eyes. Neural networks trained on known space debris behavior can flag deviations in archival footage, isolating moments where objects break the rules of physics. A 2022 Stanford study demonstrated this by analyzing decades of shuttle missions, their AI identified 17 previously overlooked instances of anomalous movements near tethers and satellites. Could applying similar algorithms to Columbia's full data dump reveal clues missed in the original investigation? Some proposals go beyond observation. MIT engineers have drafted concepts for Tether 2.0, a hardened cable studded with particle detectors and LiDAR, designed to replicate the 1996 experiment while actively scanning for interactions with potential plasma lifeforms. Meanwhile, astrobiologists advocate for swarms of nanoprobes equipped with fluorescent tracers, released near historical anomaly sites. These tiny sensors could cling to passing objects, lighting up their structures like microscopic fireflies to determine shape and composition. Skeptics argue it's a wild goose chase, but the scientific payoff could be revolutionary even if no creatures appear. Confirming novel plasma phenomena or exotic energy transfer mechanisms would reshape our understanding of orbital physics. And if by some cosmic chance we do find evidence of life, whether biological, electromagnetic, or something beyond current taxonomy, the Tether Incident's legacy would transform from conspiracy fodder to humanity's first contact with intelligence not of this world. The irony is delicious. What began as a failed engineering test may have accidentally left breadcrumbs to one of existence's greatest secrets. Now, with technology finally catching up to our curiosity, we're poised to follow them, not with speculation, but with sensors capable of distinguishing magic from reality. The tether broke once, but the search it ignited is far from over. What does it mean to be alive if those glowing shapes swirling around the tether weren't just ice or debris? If they possessed some form of awareness, some spark of sentience, then everything we think we know about life might need rewriting. Biology, as we understand it, is built on carbon, water, and DNA. But what if life in the cosmos follows different rules? What if it thrives in the void not despite the vacuum, but because of it? The idea of plasma-based organisms or electromagnetic entities forces us to confront a humbling possibility. Our definitions of life might be as limited as a goldfish's understanding of a thunderstorm. Consider the parallels to Earth's own history. For centuries, humans believed life couldn't exist without sunlight until we discovered entire ecosystems thriving in eternal darkness around hydrothermal vents. We dismissed the deep sea as barren, only to find it teeming with bioluminescent wonders. Each time, nature mocked our arrogance. Now, the Tether Incident whispers a new challenge. What if life's true diversity extends beyond planets altogether? Imagine creatures woven from magnetic fields, their bodies rippling with currents instead of blood, an ancient lineage tracing back to the dawn of the universe, older than stars, drifting between galaxies like cosmic whales. The philosophical stakes are staggering. If such beings exist, they wouldn't just expand the tree of life, they'd burn it down and plant something unrecognizable in its place. Intelligence might not require brains or even bodies, just patterns of energy complex enough to sense, adapt, and remember. Communication could occur through pulses of radiation, mating rituals through entangled particles. Their very existence would shatter the assumption that life needs a planet, a sun, or even matter as we know it. Astrobiologist Dr. Sarah Seeger once mused, "We're like ants trying to describe a symphony." Our vocabulary doesn't have the words for what might be out there. And then there's the eerie question of time. On Earth, life operates on scales we can perceive: heartbeats, seasons, lifespans. But a plasma-based organism, unshackled from decay or entropy as we experience it, might live for millennia or flicker in and out of existence in seconds. Their thoughts could unfold at the speed of light, their memories stored in shifting magnetic fields. To them, our bustling civilizations might seem like ephemeral sparks, here and gone before they can blink. The Tether's glowing visitors, if they were such entities, might not have even noticed the astronauts, just as we barely register the mites living in our eyelashes. This isn't just speculative daydreaming. The scientific method demands we follow evidence, and the Tether Incident's anomalies, those unnatural movements, those energy fluctuations, are evidence of something. Whether it's undiscovered physics or undiscovered biology, the implications are equally profound. Philosopher of science Dr. Karl Popper once argued that true discovery begins when we find what we didn't know to look for. The tether's break might have given us exactly that, a glimpse of a category of existence we hadn't even thought to name. So where does that leave us? Staring into the static, torn between wonder and skepticism, the universe owes us no answers, but it's offered a riddle, one written in plasma and light. Whether those shapes were creatures, phenomena, or mere illusions, they've already done their job. They've stretched our imagination to the breaking point. And sometimes that's the first step toward seeing the cosmos and our place in it with new eyes. So what do you think was really swirling around that broken tether? Cosmic creatures or just space junk? Over the years, this debate has sparked some wildly creative theories, and we want to hear your take. Check the poll right now and vote. Are those glowing shapes evidence of extraterrestrial life, or just a textbook case of orbital debris playing tricks on the camera? The Reddit threads alone could fill a textbook. One user, u/Plasma Pioneer, crunched the numbers and claimed the object's movements matched swarm behavior observed in cuttlefish, complete with fractal-like patterns suggesting collective intelligence. Others pointed to declassified military research on ball lightning drones, proposing the tether might have accidentally activated some long-forgotten Cold War experiment. Then there's the viral, interdimensional anglerfish theory, a tongue-in-cheek but weirdly compelling idea that the space eel was a predatory entity luring the shuttle with its bioluminescent glow, like something straight out of deep-sea folklore. But the award for most unexpected twist goes to a niche astrophysics forum where users debated whether the tether's electrical discharge could have briefly punctured a microscopic wormhole. Their logic, the orb's sudden appearances and disappearances, resembled quantum tunneling effects, a stretch mathematically, but a testament to how this footage ignites imagination. Even skeptics get creative, like the engineer who recreated the incident using a high-voltage lab setup and disco glitter, proving how reflective particles can look alive under the right lighting. What's fascinating isn't just the theories themselves, but how they reflect our own hopes and fears. For every person convinced NASA filmed a plasma-based lifeform, there's another who sees a cautionary tale about pareidolia, our brain's habit of seeing faces in clouds. The truth might lie somewhere in between, or in a possibility we haven't even considered yet. That's the beauty of unsolved mysteries. They're mirrors, showing us as much about ourselves as the cosmos. So keep those theories coming. Down in the comments, tell us your wildest or most scientific take. Who knows, the next big breakthrough might not come from a lab, but from a viewer connecting dots everyone else missed. After all, some of history's greatest discoveries started with someone saying, "Wait, what if we've been looking at this all wrong?" After decades of debate, the Tether Incident remains suspended between two compelling realities. On one side, NASA's ice and debris explanation, backed by advanced simulations and AI analyzers, paints the glowing orbs as a trick of light and physics, a cosmic sleight of hand our brains insist on animating. The tether's reflective surface, the shuttle's residual atmosphere, even the quirks of 1990s camera tech all conspired to create an illusion so convincing it fooled astronauts and scientists alike. Case closed, not quite, because on the other side stand the anomalies that resist easy dismissal. Those unnatural right-angle turns, the eerie synchronization, the spectral pulses that mirrored no known plasma behavior. Independent researchers, armed with modern tools, still can't fully replicate the object's movements using conventional models. The truth, as always, might lie in the gap between what we know and what we've yet to discover. What makes this mystery endure isn't just the footage, it's the timing. The Tether Incident unfolded at a crossroads in human history, just as the internet was stitching the world together. Unlike earlier anomalies buried in classified files or fuzzy newspaper photos, this one went viral, dissected by millions in real time. It became a shared cultural touchstone, a Rorschach test for our collective imagination. And now, as NASA prepares to return to the Moon and beyond with the Artemis program and next-gen orbital labs, we're poised to revisit the enigma with tools unimaginable in 1996. Hyperspectral sensors, quantum-linked communication arrays, even swarms of AI-driven nanoprobes could finally catch what the shuttle's cameras missed. But here's the twist: solving the mystery might not mean debunking it. Whether those shapes were plasma lifeforms, glitching sensors, or something else entirely, their legacy has already reshaped science. The incident forced astrophysicists to reconsider how matter behaves in orbital environments, inspired astrobiologists to draft blueprints for non-carbon life, and even influenced how engineers design tethers for future space elevators. The real lesson of the Tether Incident isn't just about what we saw, it's about how little we still understand the universe's rulebook. So where does that leave us? Suspended like that broken cable between certainty and wonder, maybe the answer is coming. Maybe it's been hiding in plain sight all along. Or maybe the cosmos enjoys keeping a few secrets just out of reach. One thing's certain: the void isn't as empty as we think. So tell us, what do you think lurks in the shadows between the stars? Drop your wildest or most scientific theories below, and let's keep the conversation glowing. After all, the next big discovery might start with a comment, a question, or a flicker of light in the dark.